Speedway Report is produced and broadcast by the Zeus Radio Network for Racers Reunion Radio. Well, rain still plagues pockets of many of our racing friends. IndyCars, because of the rain, staged a Monday matinee, and Kyle Busch shows more strength than even Kevin Harvick has started the season with. All this and more. Welcome to Speedway Report for Monday, April the 23rd, 2018, from the shores of Lake Norman in Race City, USA, Mooresville, North Carolina. I'm Patrick Reynolds, and thank you for joining the fastest half hour in racing. I want to give a shout out for former Riverhead Raceway competitor Joe Carbon, who joined me last week, former Charger Division driver in the quarter-mile bull ring on Long Island, one of the many Northeastern folks now making their home in the Charlotte, North Carolina area. Good to have him with us last week, so big shout-out to Joe. It was a lot of fun visiting with him and chatting with him about racing. Moving on to today, we dodged the raindrops around the country. Some shows got in, some did not, some had trouble. Let's talk about who won what over this April weekend. The Monster Energy NASCAR Cup Tour was in Richmond, Virginia on Saturday night. Kyle Busch won his third straight Cup Series race. He did it from the 32nd starting position. Only led about 30 or so laps of the 400, but he only led the only one that really counted. 3 straight for KB in the Joe Gibbs Toyota. Xfinity cars raced in Richmond on Friday night. Young Charger Christopher Bell won the 250-lapper for Joe Gibbs Racing. Far and away, easily, he'll be moving up to Cup sooner than we think. He's the next guy, so to speak, in the Cup Series that a lot of the country does not know about yet. Well, the IndyCar Tour was in Birmingham, Alabama over the weekend. They fought the rain. IndyCar finally won. They started the race yesterday. They were weathered out after about 20 or so laps. They finished the race today. Joseph Newgarden takes another win for Penske Racing down at the road course in Birmingham. Now, some glorious weather was in Baytown, Texas, near Houston, for the NHRA Spring Nationals, where in Top Fuel, Brittany Force defeated Terry McMillan for a nice comeback after her tough weekend for Force Racing, tough year for John Force Racing. Let's talk about this. Brittany had a big crash in Pomona to open the season. John had several engine blowups, fires, bodies shot off the car. Rough for him. And to make matters worse, he did not qualify for the Funny Car field here in Houston, Texas. But Top Fuel, Brittany Force, waves the flag, finally gives JFR something to smile about this season. On Funny Car, J.R. Todd defeated, another John Force driver, Robert Hite. This is the first time in Todd's career that he won back-to-back races. He joins Mike Dunn and Del Worsham as drivers who have won in Houston in both Funny Car and in Top Fuel. And a Pro Stock, Matt Hartford, his first time ever in a Pro Stock final. First win in a Pro Stock final. He defeated Erica Enders in the final round. So their teammates and their program definitely turning in a better direction. They've had tough sledding for the past couple of seasons at the team there and had them both in the final round. Big step for that team in the right direction. Matt Hartford, his first career Pro Stock win. Lucas Oil Late Models. Well, here we go with the short track rain dance going on. They attempted to run Friday night in Hartford, Ohio. Was not meant to be. Some rain and cold postponed that race until July 2nd. I'm going to think July 2nd in Ohio, the weather should be okay for them. On Saturday in Hagerstown, Maryland, yes, they raced finally. Jonathan Davenport was your winner on Saturday night. And last night in Port Royal, Pennsylvania, Scott Bloomquist won the A-Main. World of Outlaw Late Models raced in Meridian, Mississippi for a doubleheader. On Friday night was won by Brandon Shepard and Saturday night by Billy Moyer Jr. Now, those poor guys, they haven't raced since about February, I think, down in Florida. The World of Outlaw Late Models, just weather. They've been beat up on their schedule. So Shepard and Moyer Jr. finally visiting Victory Lane. World of Outlaw Sprints not immune to the weather woes. Friday night in West Memphis, Arkansas, Darren Pittman won the A-Main. He liked that so much he backed it up with a sweep with the A-Main in Peebly, Missouri on Saturday night. And they tried to go last night in Hofstat, Indiana. Boom, there's the rain again. They lost the show last night in Hofstat. Don't know if that race will be made up. Tough to find a spot on the schedule. Of course, if it is run, you'll have the winner right here on Speedway Report. Sorry about that. ARCA Cars raced yesterday afternoon in Salem, Indiana on the high banks. Christian Eckes won that race. Great finish, good race. I like the short track racing. I like the high banks. I like the wearing out of the tires. Good place to go. Tight pit road in Salem. Almost had an accident with some crew guys. Could have been a whole lot worse. Eckes won for Venturini Motorsports, which is kind of like Hendrick, so to speak, in the Cup Series. And they said that win there, Eckes and his family. Christian's won the Snowball Derby. He said that ARCA win yesterday afternoon was bigger than the Derby. It could be a nice step for Eckes' career as he's still a teenager, winning a lot of big races as he marches his way up the ladder. A USAC Sprints, Montpelier, Indiana on Saturday night was rained out, wet grounds, cold temps. You know the recipe. Been a tough spring for a lot of the short tracks. In Grandview, Pennsylvania, they did get the show in on Saturday nights. The small blocks were won by Ryan Watt, Sportsman by Brad Grimm, and late models by Danny Snyder. And the Cars Tour, they were strutting their stuff down here in the Southland in Rougemont, North Carolina, at the Orange County Speedway. The doubleheader was split by Deke McCaskill. He won the 100-lap late model stock feature. Bubba Pollard won the super late model 150-lapper. And Saturday night, my home track here, Bowman Gray Stadium, the Madhouse, opened up for another season of racing in Winston-Salem, North Carolina, with the Hayes Jewelers 200. Burt Myers set fast time on Friday night. He went flag to flag on Saturday night for the feature, taking the opening night win at the Madhouse in the 200. Now, let's jump to some stuff, we'll call it. I don't know if you want to call it my bitch list or what we got this week. I want to bring up Gunther Steiner again. Now, he's conversation. Those of you new in the audience might be saying, who the heck is Gunther Steiner? Well, I'll tell you, he is the Formula One director at Haas. Haas being the Kannapolis, North Carolina-based Formula One team, because Kannapolis always been home to F1 cars. Kind of hard to believe the hometown of Dale Earnhardt now hosts the U.S. Formula One series. Gunther is the director of the Formula One program under Haas. They have the NASCAR program, so many of our stock car fans are familiar with. The F1 portion is run by Steiner. And he made a comment in an interview which got a lot of attention. He was talking to some folks about the state of Formula One racing. Gunther stated that he did not want Formula One to go down the road of a spec series. I agree. Good for that. He, looking at Formula One, was just talking about how fans don't really want a spec series. They'd like to see technology developed, but they don't want, basically IROC had its place, but it doesn't want another IROC series. He didn't want Formula One, as he said, dumbing down to the likes of IndyCar. Maybe, IndyCar was kind of like a dumbed down version of Formula One. This brought the ire of several of the IndyCar drivers, including one of Dario Franchitti, who retweeted Steiner's interview in an article saying that Steiner didn't know what he was talking about. What qualifications does he have? That IndyCar has some spec parts that are required, but it's not a spec series, even though this year they have the common aero kit split between all makes of cars, both makes. There is no aero, it's a common aero kit for the downforce reasons. And that there's some parts that are spec, but it's not a spec series. There's different cars. There's different technology developed there. And there's some driver has input. There's overtaking, which is much more than Formula One. I agree with Franchitti on that. Now, I'm going to call out Steiner in his dumbing down of IndyCar's comment. And I'm going to back up Franchitti on this because I have worked with Gunther Steiner before. He was the director of Team Red Bull in the NASCAR. What did we have? Was it Nextel Cup at the time? Sprint Cup? Anyway, NASCAR 2006 to about 2000 and what did we do? 11, 12, something like that. Anyway, Steiner was the director of not one, but two Cup teams. Now, we're talking the kind of money that Red Bull can throw around. Each team had a $25 million budget per season, $50 million per season for two cars on the Cup Tours, what we worked with. Steiner ran the whole thing. Steiner did not know what the All-Star race was at Charlotte Motor Speedway. Had no clue. Charlotte Motor Speedway in May, director of a Cup team, that kind of budget, and I'm sure that his paycheck was well into the seven-figure category, had no idea what All-Star Weekend was at Charlotte Motor Speedway. No idea. This is the kind of guy who was running two NASCAR Cup Series teams. This is the kind of guy making comments, pissing off the IndyCar crowd, who is now running a Formula One team. There's a lot of people in this sport. I'll speak from personal experience around the Charlotte, North Carolina area. There are a lot of people in NASCAR, I mean a whole lot, that are making a lot of money and have no clue what they're doing. They have fallen into what's called a position or a title, and they're just recycled from job to job, team to team. Not saying they're any talent or any good at what they do, but once they achieve or talk their way into some position or title, and they've got that title associated with them, even if they're terrible at it, they go to another platform, another operation, and get paid just gobs of money because they have that title to them. There's a lot of race engineers, car chiefs, crew chiefs, not all of them. I'm not saying all of them, but there are many here in NASCAR world that are making a lot, boatloads of money, who have no clue what they're doing. They just have a title. Steiner absolutely strikes me as the kind of guy who has no clue what he's doing, but he holds a position and he holds a title because he always has. Somehow he got there. Somehow he was hired to do something and run something, get paid a lot of money, and so he is. And there he is. He was making, I'm sure, boku bucks in the NASCAR world. Lord knows the kind of money he's making in the Formula One world, even though their base is right down the road from us in Kannapolis. From my experience of working with this guy, he didn't have a clue as far as stock cars and NASCAR. He got paid a lot of money, and he ran the whole operation. Leopards don't change their spots. I'm figuring he doesn't have a clue what the Formula One Tour is doing, and he's just running the show for whatever reason. But, yeah, if you got him, I imagine any strides or successes Haas makes will be in spite of him, not because of him. But, yeah, I mean, I root for Haas as much as anybody. I'm an American. They're an American Formula One team. I want to see them do well, score championship points, kick some tail in F1. But you got to have some talent there at the controls, and I don't think it's there. I saw it at NASCAR. Lack thereof, I imagine it's still there in Formula One. Speaking of IndyCar, let's jump down to Birmingham and those conditions there. And I don't know what I want to call it, a screw-up, I don't know, what do I call it with this? Here, let me go talk about the race here for a minute. We started the race Sunday, and, you know, I want to use air quotes for race. That with the pouring down rain, those guys really could not race very well. They couldn't see, they couldn't compete. It was miserable, cold, chilly, rainy conditions. I'm all for a wet track. I think it's kind of cool. You get to a point in a downpour where that thing had to be red flagged. Now, we stopped it on Sunday. We brought it back on Monday. And here's what we had. We had a lot of people playing the entire race laps from the start. They made some judgment calls and pit stops in that first 20 laps based on the full distance of the event. We red flag the event and pick it up on Monday morning, and lo and behold, IndyCar decides to let everybody refuel before we go green today, earlier today. It screwed up a lot of guys. A lot of guys had already made a pit stop and were in position on track with a full load of fuel in the back, waiting for the guys up front without a full load of fuel to pit. IndyCar decides to let the entire field fill up on fuel. That screwed up a lot of guys. Simon Pagenaud, strategy out the window. Marco Andretti, strategy out the window. They had tough finishes on the day. Why would IndyCar do such a thing? Why would they do that? The reason, they couldn't secure the cars. At the layout at the Birmingham road course is that there's no garage to lock them into, and they were afraid the teams would go tinkering with the cars anyway. So it just didn't happen. They allowed everybody to refuel the cars, and just because they couldn't enforce it, there was no way to secure the cars. With an IndyCar race, this level of motorsports, don't you think there would be some way to secure them? Do we not secure locker rooms in the NFL or the NBA or the NHL? It's the IndyCar series. If you're working at a facility and racing there, there should be some way to secure everybody's cars and vehicles and the officials to keep them under wraps and secure until the next morning. That's the reason they did it. They couldn't. There's so many ways in and out of the Birmingham road course that they really just couldn't keep the guys keeping an eye on it. They had a rule that they couldn't enforce, so they broke their own rule and let people go to it. It turned out to be a different race. Joseph Newgarden went going away. Spectacular sight to see. Good for him. But when you drop the green flag on Sunday, I could see team engineers planning for the full distance. I thought it was a Busch League move on IndyCar. I understand the explanation, but then why are we racing at this facility? There should be a way to secure cars or impound them from some way, shape, or form. Changing rules in midstream is never a good thing, no matter what. I say you enforce the rule, and if teams break it or bend it, you should be easy enough to catch. You know how many laps they went on Saturday, and if they fill the fuel rig up, you should be able to tell by how many laps they continue to go on Sunday to Monday. We didn't enforce rules that we didn't even give a chance to stand. I would have enforced them and at least been able to tell. You could tell how many laps guys would go. If they do the impossible on what supposedly is a half a tank of fuel, you're going to know. There's no way to get around on that. On to the stock car side. I remember when Bill Elliott was a young up-and-coming driver in the early 80s and running with the family-owned team and not really even running all the races on the Cup Tour. The guy did 8 second-place finishes before we finally got his first win. November 1983 out on the road course in Riverside, California. I remember it. And 8 second-place finishes. Not as many as Harry Gant, but quite a bit for Bill Elliott as he tried so many times to get that first win. Fell short time after time after time again. Well, this past Saturday night, Chase Elliott tied Dad Bill's mark. He's got 8 second-place finishes at over 2 years in the Cup Series. Still looking for his first race win. Chalked up second-place finish number 8. It's not a matter of if, it's just a matter of when Chase Elliott starts stepping into winner's circle on a frequent basis. Now, the Cup race itself, we talked about this earlier, 3 straight for Kyle Busch. He jumps into the stands after a race. Would he have done that several years ago? As unpopular as he was, do you think he would hop up in the grandstands for fear of being beat or tackled or something like that? I mean, he's not a popular guy with so many people. He's got legions of fans, but a lot of people just don't like him. But he had the guts to go up in the grandstands. I think it's a great thing. I love the connection with our fans, with the NASCAR fans. But man, that seems like a dangerous situation right there. And I guess it's pretty relevant in 2018, but I don't know if he would have done that several years ago. A lot of people giving credit to his newfound love with this podcast that he did with Dale Jr. in the past week, where the two of them talked about that Richmond crash back in 2008. Jr. leading late in the race, Kyle Busch sending it in low, in hard, and smacking into Jr. and sending him into the wall. Jr. is willing to bury the hatchet, forgive, forget. The two of them talked about it, and maybe Maybe the Dale Jr. fans are forgiving Kyle Busch as well, since Jr. himself did. Dale Jr. still a pretty relevant name, even though he's not on the track each week. But he still resonates with a lot of fans, and they still connect with him quite well. The race itself was good, not a Hall of Fame finish by any means, like a 4 wide side by side finish, but there was a lot of good racing through the pack. You had 3 lanes to use. Jeff Burton has got this fantastic idea of taking one weekend a year and sending the Cup Tour to a former short track that we used to race on. Myrtle Beach, South Boston, Nashville Fairgrounds, something like that. Make it a short track weekend, move it from year to year, but have the Cup Series at that track. And look at with the crowd that showed up at Bristol a few weeks ago, a place like the Nashville Fairgrounds can handle the crowd just fine. We don't support 100,000 fans at these short tracks on the Cup Tour anyway. So many seats have been taken out of Richmond. So many seats have been taken out of the short tracks. A place like Nashville, a place like South Boston, let's go for it. They can hold the number of fans that want tickets to an event like that just fine. I would love to see like a 400 lapper down at Myrtle Beach, South Carolina with the Cup Tour just as a one-time shot. I think it'd be fantastic. You're looking for something funny to watch? Go look at James Hinchcliffe's interview during the red flag at the Honda Grand Prix of Alabama down in Birmingham. Tells a great story. Answers one of the most popular questions race car drivers get. What do you do in the car when you have to go to the bathroom? Well, YouTube that sucker, folks, because James Hinchcliffe can tell it a whole lot better than I can. Very entertaining and funny story from the mayor of Hinchtown. And how wonderful is it that with this checkered flag here in Birmingham, the next time the IndyCars stage an event, it will be in May at the Indianapolis Motor Speedway. Christmas is coming, folks. May is almost here. In between our broadcasts, keep up on the world of motorsports with SpeedwayReport.com. This broadcast and all of our past shows are uploaded on the site. We also have racing articles to read. So if the winter weather is still gripping you and you've got cold and rain and all that, grab a podcast and some racing reading material. Uploads of this broadcast and our past episodes are on. Here's the lowdown of this. On Facebook, go to Speedway Report with Patrick Reynolds or the Racers Reunion page. On Twitter, go to @Speedway Report or @SpeedwayPat. On RacersReunion.com, go to the forum. SpeedwayReport.com, just on the homepage. If you are connected to me on a Google+, LinkedIn, and Facebook, and I just added one, Speedway Report now has its own YouTube channel. So go look over there. So if you're looking for this show, goodness gracious, we got a lot of places for you to see it, but you can start by SpeedwayReport.com. Big thanks to everyone on the Facebook live feed for joining in the conversation during the show tonight. I'll get back to everybody shortly. Just a little busy with the one-man band show here, trying to run the show, but thanks for tuning in. Thanks for commenting. I'll be chatting with you guys a little bit later tonight. As always, go see a race at a track near you. The grassroots ovals, drag strips, and road courses are the backbone and foundation of the auto racing world. So check out your local track this weekend. I want to thank all of the military past and present for the freedoms we enjoy as Americans in our daily life, including the simple things like bench racing right here on a Monday night. Freedom is not free, and a veteran paid that bill for us. To all of the men and women who are defending freedom and watching Speedway Report, take care of yourselves and come home soon. A special salute to the teachers, school staff, firefighters, police officers, and paramedics in our own communities. They are quiet and modest heroes every single day. God bless and thank you. You have been watching Speedway Report from the shores of Lake Norman in Race City, USA, Mooresville, North Carolina. Please like our Facebook page, Speedway Report with Patrick Reynolds, and follow me on Twitter @SpeedwayPat. On the Drag Racing List Facebook page next is Racing and Rockin' with Draglist.com. You can join BP, JB, and BS as they cover drag racing and some great music. We will be back live next Monday, It'll be April 30th. We're wrapping up NASCAR in Talladega, Formula One in Azerbaijan, Stafford's Spring Sizzler, the short tracks, and a whole lot more. Thank you all for joining us. I'll see you next time.